Hello and welcome to the Podawakens. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, even when I'm not here, breaking down the Acolyte, Ron. How are you, day, Ron?
I'm doing good, man. I was gonna start saying it at the exact same time as you, but I thought it'd be funny to do that.
That would have thrown me off. Yeah.
But I'm doing great, man. It's good to have you back. The Jord Horde was up in arms over your absence last week, so they'll be happy to see you back with us here.
Yeah. Thankfully, my neck was not snapped. Just dealing with other stuff, but no, it was good. I mean, sadly, I'll say sadly in this regard. That episode is one of our like top 6 listens. So I'm like, should I even come back? Right. But the ones above that have me in it. So I'm like, yes, I should come back.
Yes. Oh God, come on now. It's not the same without you.
We are talking The Acolyte, episode 7, which, contrary to rumors, is called Choice. And it was written by Charmaine, DeGrate, Jen Richards, and Jasmyne Flournoy, directed by Kogonada. Sorry, I butchered that
Easy
both
for you to say.
times. And it aired July 9th, 2024 on Disney Plus. And the Disney Plus description here is as enlightening as ever. A bitter truth is revealed.
Groundbreaking.
So I don't know how we want to start with this. Look, I think we'll start with just general thoughts on the episode, maybe get some of our complaints out of the way, and then we can kind of dive into what this stuff means for the finale going forward.
Yeah, you know, the this show has been such a roller coaster, right? Like the first two episodes were so tremendous, and then we were kind of split on 3 and 4, and then 5 was, go back to our episode on 5 and listen to me wax poetic about how much I love that. And then these last two, to me, have just really kind of been a step down. I just hasn't quite been hitting for me the same for a lot of reasons that we'll get into here. Um, there was some stuff that I did like, of course. The aesthetic of the show continues to be amazing, but there was just so many decisions in this episode specifically that felt, I don't want to say forced, but not quite worthy of the buildup that they were given. You know what I mean? Like it just, I don't know. It just overall the episode really didn't hit home for me, and I'm very nervous about how they're going to wrap this thing up in the finale. I hope they have enough time. It seems like they're probably going to leave some stuff open for a potential second season. Maybe Leslie Headland has been given a promise behind the scenes that we don't know about that it is going to get a second season. But short of knowing that we're getting a second season already, I'm a little afraid. So I'm not going to say I hated the episode or anything like that, but it didn't work for me. I guess for just to put it lightly, it did not work for me this week.
Yeah, so I wasn't on last week, famously. So I wasn't on last week, and I would still put episode 6 as the weakest for me.
Okay.
Look, I don't know if it was because I'm watching this thing, bloodshot eyes, tired on a hospital couch, you know, taking care of my baby and my
Yeah.
wife, getting,
Mind everywhere except on the
mind
actual show.
everywhere. Yeah. But that one was, I was exhausted. I was like constantly checking the time last week of, is this thing almost done? Cause I need to hit the bed.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it was like that. Now, again, I didn't hate it, but it was like um, you kind of mentioned it in the podcast last week that my whole thought, and we talked about it offline, was last week what they could have done. Look, let's have more than 8 episodes for TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Is option one for me. Even if this is 10, I think 10 would have been a great number for this show.
Perfect. Yep.
What you do is you have a whole episode that is about Keimer and Osha, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you have this episode, which would start with the whole well, there's 2 ways you can go about it. So you either have this episode and it starts with Soul and May, right? And he's like, finally, I'm going to tell you the truth, just like he does at the end. And you can kind of skip a lot of the meandering around the
Yeah.
Jedi starship that happened last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So far, I can say that because I don't know how much that'll play into the finale, right? So obviously, if that comes up big in the finale, then you'd have to restructure some stuff. But going off what we've seen, I would have a Soul and May episode that then he finally tells the truth and we get his point of view and it's this, right?
Mhm.
Or you combine episode 3 in this and there's no need to have two point of views because to be honest, this mystery on what happened on Brindock, not that big of a deal.
No.
I think anyway. Like it's frustrating because after episode 5 I said what was exciting is they can go anywhere. They can go anywhere with the show. We got Keimer reveal. We got, Osha and May getting split off. And what happened in that? Osha maybe got seduced very easily,
Hmm.
or May just kind of runs around acting as Osha for 20 minutes and then Soul finally figures it out and stuns her. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all that we got last week. And now you're looking at going into the finale now because we kind of thought about this, right? We kind of thought this after episode 5, I think it was, or maybe just because you mentioned it on episode 6 and we talked about it offline.
Hmm.
But if this episode just started with the 16 years ago
Hmm.
and it's all in the past like this one was, then you really only have one episode left to wrap this up. And it's next.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I worry about as we go into the finale. As somebody that loved the first 5 episodes,
Hmm.
last week was fine. This week I enjoyed more than last week, but it's like, all right, we didn't learn, like you said in your tweet, we didn't learn too much, right?
Hmm.
And I think some people are being a little too harsh on it, of course. As is always the
Of
case when
course.
it comes to this show, which had like a 3 out of 10 rating before it even premiered, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
But there are frustrating things here. I kind of liked the inner Jedi dynamics. I
Hmm.
like the fact that Soul was very, we have to liberate these children. I don't find it weird that he was kind of like, I saw some people trying to frame it weird of like, he's obsessed with an 8-year-old. And I'm like, let's not make it weird.
Oh, come on. Yeah, that's.
Like, I'm like, let's pull it back a bit. Qui-Gon was obsessed with a 9-year-old.
I was just gonna
Right?
say.
Like,
So then, was
so,
Qui Gon also obsessed with? And every single Jedi who takes on a young, like, no,
right,
that's
right.
ridiculous. That's
What
ridiculous.
he finds out are that this coven of witches have children and that they're the only two children, and he worries that they're going to be pretty much sacrificed. That's kind of the underlying message that he's worried about,
Well, he's
right?
and they're outright told that because May says that to them on the ship about
Yes,
the
about the
fear.
ascension.
Yes, and what the ascension entails. Easy for me to say, and how it you must be sacrificed. Uh, I think yeah, I don't think he was wrong in wanting to do it. I think his approach and I think his execution of the plan still left a lot to be desired, even after seeing the full scope of it. Like I still think he was a little premature on pulling that saber out and stabbing Mother Anastasia. But that one I'll at least hear. I'll hear the other side of because you're standing there and all of a sudden this woman turns into this black demonic smoke. Like
And
you're
oh,
not gonna be like,
and May is starting to turn into that smoke too. So he's
mm-hmm.
like worried she's doing something to the child. So I understand his move here. I put more blame on Torben at this point. I understand why
Oh
this guy
yeah,
took the vow.
yeah,
And
for
why he
real.
killed himself. He's like, yeah, not great. Not great. His whole I know some people are upset that maybe his whole motivation is just getting back to Coruscant, but there is history of this. There's actually a Jedi in the High Republic era called Reith Silas. Into the Dark, he was a bookworm Jedi who never left Coruscant, and his master forces him to go on this adventure. And the whole time he's like, I just want to get back to the library, right? And it's kind of what this guy reminded me of, Torben. But the way it was executed in story left a little bit to be desired from me. I wish that they actually, if they had, the way this episode flows, because it cuts out parts we've already seen, I would have rather seen some of the stuff we've already seen again. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Because then I have to remember what episode 3 showed.
Yeah, and they
You know what
did
I'm
do a
saying?
little. They did do a little bit of that. Like they
Just a
show
little.
us.
Like they
Yeah.
kind of do like the whole like they show May's test, and then they
Mhm.
just cut to after OSHA's test. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? And they
yeah.
could have showed a little bit more of that.
Well, they do. Well, no, they show a
But
little bit of it. They show May. They show Osha like guessing the planet, and then remember Indara like kind of has like and basically what I took from that
yeah,
was that
yeah.
she was seeing if Master Soul was lying behind the screen, sort of thing. So they did a little bit. I will give them that much.
Yeah, but there were some scenes that like okay, so I was putting myself in a different position too because my mom was over and she
Oh,
never
okay.
watched any of the Acolyte. And I'm like, "Sorry,
Uh,
I'm putting this on. I'm watching it."
mm,
And I'm just kind of thinking like her's never seen it, which obviously isn't not who it's made for, right? People have never
mm,
seen it. But I'm like, "Man, they could have probably put a little bit more inserts of stuff that actually happened in episode 3."
mm.
And that's why I think it would have flowed so much better as one episode.
Yeah, yeah. That's really it. It should have been one episode because going back to what we were saying before, we didn't learn anything that was very groundbreaking here. Like there was some stuff that we had been speculating on, like did somebody else start the fire? Like it seems like that spread pretty quick. Nope, it was just May. Uh, we already knew that the twins were artificially birthed. We did get that little bit in there about how their symbiote is the exact same, which kind of lends itself to Jessica's theory from our third episode about them being clones. Shout out Jessica. But I just I don't know. It felt like this was supposed to be the big reveal episode, and I just feel like I'm still left with so many questions here, and even probably like more questions. Which, when you're progressing through the show, when you're on episode 2, episode 3, that's a great thing. When you're on the penultimate episode and you've got one more episode to wrap this up the right way, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating with like you said, this is kind of how I thought this episode was going to go with there was a lot of people for whatever reason after episode 5 is like so obviously Soul is the Sith Lord and I'm like what are you guys what show
Yeah,
are you guys watching is what
I
I wanted to know. What show
yeah,
are you watching? They're like well you see Keimer hints at him having a dark side. Yeah, the thing that he's been dealing with for 16 years is obviously
yeah,
what they're referring to.
yeah.
And it's obviously this. And this answers a lot of the questions we had with May at the beginning, right? May mentions to Indara, yes, I've seen you guys cut people down without weapons. She's talking about Soul striking Mother Anasea,
Mhm,
right? That is who May is referring to when she's talking about Indara. When Indara says we don't use our lightsabers to
mhm.
unarm on unarmed people, she's like, yes, you have. I've seen it, right? So
I've
that
seen
is an answer here.
it. Yeah.
That's a great answer to the question. But again, that could have came in episode 3. It doesn't have to come in episode 7.
Mhm.
And we get to this point where you're now um the answers were pretty much answers I thought we were going to get, right? Like they're going to paint it in a way that you see both sides.
Mhm.
You see the Jedi side. Oh, okay, I'm worried that these people are going to kill these kids. And then also they learn that their M counts are high and that they're possibly I wouldn't even say clones. I would say force force clones. Like they're not even like they're not like Camino clones, right? They're
No, no,
like
no, no, no. Yeah.
maybe one of them was concepted by the force and then they used the dark force to split it into two embryos making two kids, right?
That's
That is
basically
one
what I'm
person.
thinking.
That's kind of what my read on it is.
Mhm.
And then he's like, "Oh, that's kind of dark magic, but also these kids are strong, like we should try to liberate them." I'm on board with most of Soul's thought process here. Indara, obviously the most level-headed of all of them here
Yeah.
in this show. Um, she knows she doesn't want to cause an international incident. Uh, and you can just tell when she's flying low and the bombs, like the fires are going in the fortress. She's like, her reaction is like, "What? Like, I couldn't leave them alone for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
5 minutes." Um, I will say they did give me a nice swerve, Ron, when they're talking about their why did you bring him? And Torben's like, no, my mind is
Yeah.
fortified now. And it's Kalnaka, which
Yeah.
explains why he went into kind of an exile
Mhm.
here. And we find out why the witches are dead. They were kind of controlling Kalnaka, and I guess whatever Indara did to break that killed them. Either probably because they had overexerted themselves controlling them, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think they're fine with that. I think the witches were fine with that. What was May saying about the ascension? That some of them would be sacrificed so that way they could become the leaders or something? It
Yeah.
was like,
Well, you have to sacrifice in order to become the leader, something like that. But it was kind of like a twist on something Mother Anastasia said in episode 3, kind of describing the ascension. And I'm not going to try to butcher the exact thing, but basically, like, the way that Mother Anastasia presented it was in a much more like kind of light seeming way of, like, you must face your fears and you must make sacrifices in order to, fulfill your destiny, kind of thing. And then when May recites it back to the Jedi, they're like, no, she said we got to sacrifice, and we're gonna die, and then we're gonna be the leader, sort of thing. Like, it felt like she kind of didn't really interpret it correctly, is kind of the best way that I would put it. So I'm not really sure.
yeah, yeah. I'll probably have to go back and
Mhm.
rewatch that before the finale, and maybe go back and watch episode 3 again and
Yeah.
try to, well, watch 3 and 7 back to back before
Mhm.
the finale. That might be a good idea. As we're only like a week away from the
Yeah.
finale, which they said will wrap up almost everything because it was written as one season, but I'm having a hard time believing that.
Same. Because now they throw this whole virgins thing at us in the penultimate episode, and it raises so many more questions. Like, is Brendock itself the virgins? Are the girls the virgins? Because, like, oh, are you?
So I was just gonna say, the way I understood that was maybe that the witches have created a virgins on that planet, which then has caused it to. All right, yeah, this is a good point because they mention in here about a hyperspace disaster that happened 100 years ago. For High Republic fans and for people that don't read the High Republic, that is a reference to the hyperspace disasters that happened in like the Hetzal system in Light of the Jedi. So that's what kicked everything off. That's what the Nihil did. They blew up a ship in the middle of hyperspace. And what happened is all those pieces of the ship started getting deposited out of different lanes in hyperspace. So then it starts landing and hitting other planets, and some of them started wiping out life on other planets. Um, so the Jedi had to try to stop this, right? And that's what the whole first book of the High Republic is about. And so in this case, it knocked out the life on Brendock,
Mhm.
and it had no life at all after that. But now there's all these trees. There's all these like there's the butterflies, right?
Mhm.
There's people living here. And the Jedi figure this out and they're taking samples like, hey, this shouldn't be having life. That's why they're there. So again, we kind of thought after episode 3 that they were lying, right? Because it's kind of positioned that way where Mother Anase is like, you mean to tell me the Jedi had no clue,
Yeah.
what they're walking into. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, actually that was the case. What we learned here.
Relatively,
Uh,
though, it
yeah.
was the only the biggest reveal, I would say, is that, oh, I guess it wasn't really a reveal as much as, like, them showing us that their original intention for being there had nothing to actually do with the
Yeah.
girls at first. It was because they sensed this virgins, and, like, basically they were almost using the girls as, like, chess pieces to be able to kind of figure this whole situation out.
Well,
So
Torben wants to just use the girls as his ticket back home.
yeah.
He's like, "Oh, if we bring them back home, they'll want us back on Coruscant, right? Like we
Oh,
can leave this place."
God,
Um,
fucking
did
Torben.
not work that way for him.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
But yeah, so they're that's what happened on that planet. So now they're figuring out that there is life there, and then they find out that there's actually these witches. They mention Night Sisters. They don't think they're Night Sisters because they actually train younglings. Um, and that's kind of what gets Soul interested, right?
Mhm.
Um, and he feels a connection with Osha. He thinks she is meant to be his Padawan, which she does become. Obviously, there are some things that make me go kind of like what? Because like okay, so Mother Anastasia, why is she turning into smoke? Just tell them yes, I'm sending Osha with you. Like I
Yeah.
don't understand what is she trying to do there. what she was doing, that's what caused Soul to kill her. Just have a conversation. But I get
I
it. Like, it's whatever. It's what the dramatic stuff needs to happen, I guess.
and it was like with the episode title being choice. I think it was all centered around like in that moment, everybody makes a choice. Like she does
Yeah.
her smoke thing. Mother Coral pulls her staff out. Torben's already got his saber out, and he kind of messed things up already. So like it was basically everybody in that moment making the choice that led to this big smorgasbord of being effed up that we saw play out over the following few minutes.
Well, yeah, I guess the biggest choice actually was his ending choice, right? Something that we didn't see in episode 3.
Yep.
We just kind of thought maybe he lost grab of one or whatever, right? But he clearly gives up May to save Osha.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
I'll
did
tell you,
oh no,
I'm
go for it.
100% behind this. I'm 100% behind this.
Oh my god, babe killer.
Soul Patrol, baby. We are.
Hell
The
no.
reason I say that is because May seemed pretty dedicated, right, to the family. She's already lost everybody in our family, and Osha's actually the one that wants to go, wants to leave. Um, so if you're gonna save one of them, I'd rather save the one that's gonna love me for saving them, the one that's gonna try to press charges on me for killing her mom. All right.
Oh my god. Ugh, no, the Soul Patrol is full of bad cops, apparently. No, it just I think the thing that got me the most about it is that he sits there and there's like a good 5 to 8 seconds that he's got the both sides of this bridge like held up. He doesn't yell to them. He doesn't say like May jump
Jump.
or
Yeah.
anything. Like it felt way too deliberate that he dropped them both as opposed to like I physically cannot keep this up, so I have to drop one or they're both gonna die. Like I don't think they really did a good if they were going for that, I don't think they conveyed it very well. I think they gave a lot of room for people like myself who were already kind of on the fence about Soul to be like, nah, screw this guy.
I think that's the main issue, Ron. I think it was just not portrayed well,
Mm.
not by the actor.
No,
Um,
no, he's great. He's
he's
amazing.
great, but what I think the issue was is obviously the script doesn't tell him to say jump, right? So he
Yeah,
doesn't, and they kind
yeah,
of hold on to it for dramatic tension of he's
yeah,
got both of them. What's gonna happen?
yep,
And it's really like, yeah, a real person in real life would be like, yeah, jump to the other
yeah.
side, and I can keep you. But that's not what they wanted to happen, so it didn't happen. So I don't put it as much on the characters. I put it on the actual
Hmm.
um I guess writing or directing, who whatever would be the main issue with that.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's one of those things where I kind of have to call it like I see it, just because that's
Yeah,
how it played out on screen. But I
yeah,
do
yeah.
fully acknowledge that it was a writing choice and not like an the actor uh not playing it right, basically. What is it? Lee Jung Jae is his name, I believe. I don't want to butcher
Yes,
that. Lee
I
Jung Jae.
believe so. No, yeah, he's done a great job. I think that's why I find Soul so likable, honestly,
Mhm.
right? Like maybe if this is played by somebody else, I'm not on Soul Patrol,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's a very likable guy.
Hmm.
I think he's trying to do the best he can. He wants to come clean at the end, but Andara's like, dude, we're so far in this now.
Yeah,
We cannot we cannot do that.
yeah,
She says it's to keep the dream alive for Osha. I think it's more of a I ain't going down for this. All
yeah,
right, I tried my best to stop you guys. I am not getting reprimanded because you guys couldn't keep it together.
yeah.
Uh,
You know
no,
what? You know what it reminded me of? Remember in last week's episode when they are when Vernestra and all them are looking through the damage that Chimere did, and what is his name? Mog, I think his name is Mog. Her like kind of little Padawan guy is like, do you think Master Soul could have did this? And she says that's a heavy accusation to make. And those are the words that came out of her mouth, but her eyes told a different story. I kind of got that same vibe from Endara in this scene. where it's like, you're gonna do that after all of this happened, like, for shame. But like in her eyes, it's just like, yeah, we're not, no, we're not going down for this. Yeah,
Yeah, dude, I just want to be a Jedi Master. I do not want to deal with your shit right now. We're gonna pin it on the child that died because they're
yeah,
dead, right? And he's like,
yeah.
yeah, they're dead.
And that's another thing that, like, I really thought we should have had revealed in this episode, even though I guess it would have been tough because this whole thing was being
Supposed to
told
be Soul, yeah.
by, yeah, but like, how did May survive that fall? Like, that's something that we need to know. And like, what happened from that point up to where we saw her in episode 1 kind of begin things. Like, we know the general idea of like, yeah, eventually she came across Chimere and then she was like being groomed to be the next Acolyte. But like, before that, that's a pretty sizable chunk of time that we just have no clue about. And that's something that I really would have liked to get a little more
Well,
news.
I heard that's episode 9.
Oh, geez. Yeah, great. In 2027. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. That's the frustration of 8 episode seasons,
Mhm,
especially look, I'll say this. I know not everybody was the biggest fan of Secret Invasion. All right. I enjoyed it for what it's worth, and I largely didn't have a problem with like the runtime on that show.
mhm,
Most of these Disney Plus shows, I say, look, uh, as long as they're telling the story they want to tell, I don't care how long the episode is. I don't think we should have these time frames just because that's what old network television used to be. You know, 30 minutes for comedy, an hour
mhm,
for drama, like
mhm,
22 minutes without commercials, 42 without commercials. And then, streaming came along and it became like 50,
mhm.
55, an hour and a half. Like some of these shows, like Stranger Things, is like, we'll give you a 2-hour movie and call it an episode, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what they do. This show, and I don't know if it's a Disney thing, I don't know if it's a Lucasfilm thing, don't know if it's a budget thing, but some of these episodes could have been longer. Um, I'm mostly looking at episode 6 when I say this.
Mhm,
Some of these episodes could have been longer if you're going to do 8. If you're going to do 8, give us more meat on the bone each
yeah,
week, right? And I'm not saying all of them have to be like episode 5's perfect. It's like 30 minutes. Great.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect, right?
Mhm,
Like that's an episode that you can say we nailed it in 35 minutes. Awesome.
mhm.
But I worry next week is supposedly 43 minutes. And it's like
Which
that's
will
what this
end up
week
being
was.
like 38 by the time it's
Yeah,
when you get done with credits and the opening
right.
stuff.
And this one was 43 minutes. And this one flew by for me. And I'm like,
Yeah, me too.
"Oh. Oh."
Yeah.
Cuz
And
what do we
not in like the, "Oh, this is great" kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah, cuz we got okay, here's what we've got to go on, right? Like if we're taking the state of the union of
Ah.
the Acolyte here as we're looking at taking a temperature check as we go into episode 8. All right? We need resolution to Kymer and Osha.
Mhm.
She put on that helmet. So, is she actually falling to the dark side? I don't think so. And if so, that's like the quickest descent, faster than Anakin. All right, she's
Very,
like 0 to
yeah. No, it's
60.
ridiculous. One conversation, but from "You're not going to turn me. I'm not like my sister" to one scene in between.
Right, right. And, again, this is my biggest complaint with Star Wars and as a whole is how fast Anakin turns to the dark side, and then just the general thought of how quick you can turn to the dark side. All right,
Mhm.
so picture this: Dooku thinks, not really liking the way the Jedi are going right now. And then he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a separatist. All right, yeah, logical approach. And then he's like, you know what I'm going to do though? I'm going to become an asshole. I'm going to become a separatist leader, Sith Lord, and I'm going to overthrow the Republic that I liked that
Mhm.
was originally part
That
of
he
our
used to like fight
ideals. And
for. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, what are you doing, dude? Right? Like
Yeah.
I know they're supposed to say like temptation, right? It's the
Mhm.
temptation of the dark side. Same thing when Palpatine's like, strike me down and you will become my new apprentice, or your father, you'll rule the
Yeah.
galaxy with your father, you'll turn to dark. No, sometimes Luke can just kill the Emperor and be a good guy still.
Yeah.
And that's what I think with like Osha. Like she can hear the truth or Keimer's version of the truth and still be like, you know what? I got to fact check that. I got
Mhm.
to go to Snopes.com and see if this is legit
Let me get back to you in
before
24 to 48. You know what I mean? Yeah,
my
for sure.
parents said, don't believe everything you read online. I got to double check this before
Yeah.
I come back to you. Right.
Yeah.
So I think, I do think she's not going to turn. But then it's like, how do you what's the resolution here? We know May and Soul are probably going to turn around to go get Osha. But then what is it? Like I said, episode 5, we could go anywhere and we really
Mhm.
haven't. And that's the frustrating thing for me. Is I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, most of the mysteries have been solved in episode 5 except for the 16 years ago."
Mhm.
But then episode 6 was so meandering of what they're wanting me to learn or do with these characters who are spread out. And now it's like, and we also have Vernestra side of it. Does she show
That
up again? She's investigating it. What happens there? Like we got some stuff still up in the air.
Yeah, and I feel like they've officially crossed into the territory of kind of throwing that, not throwing it in our face, but showing us that so much that it's not something that can just be kind of like not addressed or like saved for season 2. Like I feel like they made a point, especially in episode 6, to like really kind of ramp up her involvement and kind of lead you to believe that she knows a lot more than she's leading on here. And again, we go back to her, the whole, oh, that's a very heavy accusation, and like all of that kind of stuff that's going to go into it. So there's a lot with Vernestra that I don't think there's, on top of everything else we're kind of going over now that has to be wrapped up. I just don't see how it happens. I just don't. I don't know. And to your point about the like where's the resolution, especially like it almost, knowing that this show was supposed to be about the Sith and like a Sith centric show, it would feel very anticlimactic if it just ended with like, oh, but the sisters are back together and Soul ultimately repents for his actions and they kill Chimere. Like, I don't know. I feel like they're in a
Yeah,
tough spot because they either go that route or they have Osha turn to the dark side and have it just feel like way too fast and way too rushed. So I don't know.
here's how I think it's gonna go, and then I can talk about if I like it or not. But here's kind of like my thoughts as we look at, okay, everything we just learned. What's gonna happen next? So they go back for Osha. May now knows the truth, and maybe she gives Soul a little bit more slack,
Mhm.
right? I don't know,
Well, do they
right?
even know? Do they even know where Chimere and May and Osha are right now? Do you think they'll just probably do some?
I would assume May can be like, "Hey, I can take you to where he trained me,"
Ah, good call. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
So then
Yep.
he can show up there,
Hmm.
and Osha's gonna be tempted by the dark side, and she's gonna learn Keimer's point of view, right? And then Keimer and Soul are gonna fight lightsaber battle wise, while
Hmm.
May and Osha have a little bit of battle. May is like, "No, you got to understand what Soul just told me," and
Hmm.
they're going back and forth. Soul dies, then it's just Keimer, right? And then May and Osha team up to take down Keimer, or he escapes, whatever. But May and Osha are now back to being um on good terms. Maybe they fuse into one person or something, right? Because they're like two halves or whatever, like something like that, to be able to take down Chimere. And at that point, I'm like, all right. But then I'd look at the show and be like, so what was the point of this story,
Yeah, you
right?
took the
And
words right out of my mouth. Like,
that's what I would be worried about.
I know you weren't advocating for that point, which is why don't feel bad in saying I would hate that. That would be the worst possible way to wrap up this show, especially because like when you think about everything that Soul told May in this episode via the lens of the flashback, what in this explanation would make her change her mind about how everything like the only thing that she didn't really know about was that Soul intentionally, like, or intentionally or by no other option, whatever, let her fall. Like, I don't know. Like, am I missing something there? I don't think there was anything in this episode that would make May be like, you know what? I see it totally your way now.
Well, I guess the only thing I think of is like his point of view of, look, we were trying to save both of you. Your mother infiltrated the minds of Kalnaka, right? We're fighting him. And Dara frees him from it, and it killed all of the witches. We didn't mean for that to happen. We were not
Well,
going in
I
trying to
think I
kill your
lost you.
whole family. Can you hear me?
I lost you for like 2 seconds there.
Oh, okay. So I was like, you could tell him about like, oh, Kalnaka got controlled when we freed him. It killed all the witches. We didn't mean for that to happen. Like, that's not what we were trying to do.
Mhm.
Yes, I thought your mom was doing something to you, so I pulled out my saber a little too hastily. And we see him immediately regret that, because then Mother Coral's trying to get him to fight, and he keeps not using his saber. He's like, never
Yeah,
mind,
yeah,
not doing that again,
yeah.
right? And maybe that changes her mind a bit, or something. I don't know. But you're right. Like, nothing in that to me showed to be enough to make May immediately be like, yeah, let's go save Osha and
Yeah,
get this
it's
done
the
with.
flip side of the OSHA thing. It's like both of them
Yeah.
have come off of their points in their stances way too quickly.
There wasn't a lot of teaching or corruption in the last episode.
No, no.
Titled Teach and Corrupt. Yeah, so that's kind of, I I would agree if that's the ending, which again is an ending I made up, so people might be like, "You're making up an ending to get mad at," and I'm not. Like, I'm just trying to see the logical progression on where we go and try to wrap this up in one episode.
Mhm.
And then again, like you said, like Vernestra maybe pins it all on Soul. They don't know that there's actually a Sith alive or whatever, and or Chimere does die from the twins, and they tell her what happened, and she's like, "Well, we'll just kind of sweep this under the rug. He's obviously dead. We're all good," right? And that would be it. And again, I would just look at that and say, "What was the point of the story?"
Mhm.
Right? Like, I want to. They kept saying this is from the Sith's point of view. This is, kind of framing the Jedi in a certain way. We got bits of that throughout the show, but it's also like not much has happened for these characters, right? Um, 2 of the episodes have been flashbacks
Mhm.
out of 8 so far, so we'll have 6 in the present day,
Yeah.
and it's like 30 minutes each. There's not a lot actually go, and Chimere is my favorite character right now because he's just portrayed so well by Manny Jacinto, and he's so interesting as a character, and he hasn't had nearly enough screen time,
Yeah.
at all, and that's
Mhm.
what I worry about is, like, what happens if he doesn't play a big part in the finale, right? Like, that's what I kind of worry about too. We got this cool badass Sith character. It's kind of like if George Lucas in Episode One created a really cool Sith looking character and then chopped him off in half at the end of the movie, and then said, "We're gonna bring Christopher Lee as the next Sith next time instead." He would never do that, but it'd kind of like if he did that.
Yeah, no, it's a good he would never do that. It's a good thing too, because that would be silly. It's okay though. Even if he did, I think he would have the wherewithal to bring him back in an animated show a few years later.
And Solo.
Yeah, and Solo. Yeah, but yeah, it's I just don't know how much more we can kind of beat a dead horse and just kind of like say it for what it is. It's a show that definitely needed more time, but at the same time has done itself no favors in some key spots in maximizing the time that they have. Like we talked about, episode 5 was the perfect way of how you maximize the little amount of time you have. But then when you think about how we spent 25% of the season on one flashback, a lot of which I still stand by that I think we got maybe even a little too much of the episode 3 stuff of it, like in this one. Like I would have much preferred to get more new perspectives and more new reveals, as we have still all these questions. I'm just I'm afraid my biggest fear is that we're just going to leave this show feeling underwhelmed and with a lot of questions that weren't answered solely because of time restraints. No pun intended.
Yeah. Um, Look, maybe this is because the 20th anniversary is coming up, but I've been thinking about Lost a lot, right? 20 years coming up. One of my favorite shows of all time. Could this show have benefited from something like that where each episode of Lost was focused on a flashback of a particular character and it would
Mhm.
weave it in and out with the main storyline?
Mhm.
I feel like if these episodes were 50 minutes or 45 minutes each, and you're weaving in an A plot and a B plot of, let's say, episode one focuses on OSHA,
Mhm.
right off the bat, and we kind of get flashbacks of OSHA along with present day, and then like the next episode, you have flashbacks with May, right? And then at that point, you are seeing scenes from the other perspective, and you're seeing that other perspective early while you're getting introduced to the characters.
Mhm.
And then like maybe episode 3 it's a soul focused episode or
Yeah.
whatever, and like you're getting pieces of the story as you go throughout the season, and you're like, oh, I like this. Like we're getting some of that background instead of it all being dumped at once.
Mhm.
um that may have worked better for something like this. um and again, flesh it out, have more than 8. I think this is and I can't put it all on the writers on this. 8 episodes. Streaming has been awful with this, just
Yeah.
so much. One of my favorite shows on Apple TV, Severance. Season 2 trailer came out today. It's coming out in January of 2025. Season 1 was in 2022. We're getting to 3 years between I know there was a strike, but we're getting to 3 years between some of these shows now. It's like
Still crazy.
ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And what we get is 8 episodes. We get 6 to 8 episodes, maybe 10 if we're lucky, and that's it. And
Mhm.
then you're left thinking of, I don't know, I miss regular TV churning out 20 of these episodes a year. And some of these
Yeah.
shows looked fantastic. Again, I'll go back to Lost. Filming in Hawaii obviously is probably expensive, but that thing looks cinematic. It had Michael Giacchino doing a full orchestra score every single week. Like,
Mhm.
what are we doing? And I don't even say this show looks cheap. I've seen some
No.
people say that this show's looked great for me the whole time. I know some people say like, oh, the woods looked rubber. You could tell it was a set. I maybe I don't notice that stuff.
I
I
didn't
can't
either.
notice it.
No.
I don't notice any of that stuff. To me, it looks great. There's some wonky CG occasionally. The speeder bike things looked a little
Yeah.
off to me, but again, when you look at the budget, right, and you look at this, and
$180 million.
you look at House of the
180
Dragons budget,
million.
right,
Yeah.
and I'm like, where is that going though,
Yeah.
right?
They were like, it
Crazy.
just Kelneka took a lot of money. We really had to pump that
Yeah,
all
putting a
aside.
tunic on Chewbacca and giving him a top knot, apparently
And de-aging Torben or up aging or
up
whatever.
aging him. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Oh.
we learned how he got his scars.
We did. We did. And I will say it was kind of funny. I did get a chuckle when all this stuff happens and then they cut back to like on the ship and he's just standing there and his face is all cut and he's like a kid waiting to get scolded by their parent or something after like doing
Are we
something
going
stupid
home
outside.
now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man. So it brings me no pleasure to talk like this about this show either because it started off so hot and
Say, I was really hyped for this. High Republic,
yeah,
first 5 episodes,
yeah, and that's the thing. The
right in my
first
Q
five,
zone.
like even 3 and 4, we liked 3, but 4 we were a little divisive on. But even still, it wasn't
I
like
liked 4 more than you did.
yeah, you
Yes.
did. But even still, it was like okay, it wasn't. It didn't feel like it totally derailed things in the way that these last 2 episodes have, and it just I don't know when Disney is going to learn the lesson about how they structure these shows because it's not just a Star Wars problem. We see it in Marvel shows. I mean, maybe hopefully when with things like Daredevil, like they'll see the success in that and maybe course correct a little bit. But even that they chopped up like crazy too. It was supposed to be like 22 episodes, then it was 18.
18. It was
Now
supposed
it's
to be 18.
9. Now we're getting 9 and 9. Like months and months apart, maybe a year apart. Who knows? I just, it's by far the biggest complaint that anybody has about any kind of Disney shows. And it's just a formula that they keep going back to, and I don't get
It has to be, and look, Disney has money, so it can't even
it.
be
Yeah,
that
they're
much
not
about
broke.
that, right?
No,
Like,
yeah.
and that's what's so frustrating is like there's got to be, if you can't do it in 8 episodes with this budget, don't do it. Don't do it at all.
Yeah,
Make it a movie or something. Like, I don't know what
yeah,
else to say cuz you are, that kind of hurt the Marvel brand more than it's hurt the Star Wars brand, right? Like people
yes,
are like, "Yeah, Mando. Yeah, like we've gotten Mando." People liked part of Obi-Wan. I liked Obi-Wan, but that was kind of divisive, I guess.
yeah.
But people really liked Mando and that was a breakout hit for them. But that
Mhm.
lent itself to 30 to 40 minutes cuz it was just Mando and Grogu doing whatever each
And
week. That
it
kind of
felt
fit.
a little more episodic. Like each episode was kind of its own thing, even though they were telling an overarching story. But it felt much more episodic in that way, where each thing sort of still
Yeah.
felt like a complete experience, as opposed to this show has done a lot more of the long movie broken up into parts thing that we've talked about.
And talk about like how, look, even 10 episodes can make you fulfilled. X-Men 97, my god, those 10
Yeah,
episodes were all A plus, right?
Game of
And I felt
Thrones,
very
man. I mean,
fulfilled.
I know they were like 50-minute, 55-minute episodes, but
Yeah,
even
yeah.
still, like it's not that much. Like if you can get another hour of screen time into this show, it would have helped so massively, especially in these last 2 episodes.
And not even just for the plot stuff, it's just getting to know the characters. Like what do we really
Yeah,
know about May other than she was the acolyte?
yeah.
Nothing, right? Like
Even these kind of like like Yord, and we had the Yord horde for three
yeah,
weeks,
yeah.
and my love of Lil Jackie, like we almost didn't even have enough time to like really fall in love with these characters. Like it just,
Right. Well, that's Star Wars in a nutshell, right? Like you'll have a
yeah,
Yord Horde before he even made his first appearance on screen. People were like
yeah,
Team Yord
yeah.
Horde, and people loved
We've,
Jackie because of
there's
the
apparently an
actress.
army of Kiadi Mundi fans out there that we didn't know existed
Yes,
until this show.
happy birthday, Kiadi Mundi. They tons of people showing up to his party apparently.
Hmm.
Um, because that happens. Like Sidon Athano, the Crimson Corsair is my guy. I
Hmm.
love him, but he doesn't have any screen time. He just looks cool, right? And you get
And
that
who
type
could,
of stuff.
and of course the obvious, Co Bibble.
Co Bibble, look, he had a lot more screen time than Crimson Corsair, though. All right,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Co Bibble, he's got Clone Wars episodes. He's in
That's true.
Episode 1. He's played by an A plus actor. Uh, Co Bibble, what a guy! What a guy! This show could have used some more Co Bibble. Uh,
Honestly, I wouldn't have complained a lick about these last 2 episodes if we got a pre-recording from before he was born. I guess this would be. You must give birth to me. It's like a little kid.
Get his weird time travel story all about making sure Co Bibble happens.
Hey, San Diego Comic Con is in 2 weeks, man. Fingers crossed.
People were like, "What type of Star Wars story would you tell, Jordan?" Well, let me tell you, we'd be introducing time travel to Star Wars. Um, I know time travel is technically introduced in Rebels, but we'll be introducing it fully, and it'd be Co Bibble goes back in time, accidentally goes to high school with his mom and his dad. All right, and then they have to go to the Under the Stars dance. Okay, and
Just your Patton Oswalt Parks and Rec moment.
yes, yeah. Star Wars Back to the Future mashup with Co Bibble.
And then the Christopher Lloyd from this universe and the Christopher Lloyd from the Star Wars universe will come together
Yes,
and
I
meet.
forgot he was in Mando. And it's that guy who creates the time machine.
It writes itself, man. It writes itself.
Oh boy. Look, I'm looking forward to what people have called the next episode Doom, even though that is false. Why do people do this? Why do people come up with
Maybe it was
these
a little
fake
foreshadowing to how we're gonna feel about it.
people come up with these fake episode titles that are disproven 2 days later, right? Like that tweet
Yeah.
you shared
Mhm.
was like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Literally, the episode airs yesterday, so there's 2 days of people saying this is the next. And you know what they do? They did it very safe. It was very safe. They said we're
Yeah.
doing another dual episode title.
Yeah.
But they done messed up when they made that rumor, because guess what? Those flashback episodes don't have the dual
Yeah.
titles.
Hmm.
So I'm on to you, fake leakers. And then it just gets disproven like 2 days later. I don't know why people have this need to try to like be
Anything,
that way.
anything for clicks, man. You getting that notification, that says so and so has favorited your tweet is like crack to them. So that's basically it.
Well, you know what else is like crack to us? Leaving reviews. And
Yes.
we got a review here that I want to read out for people. Somebody left a nice review for us. Um I have it here somewhere. What is that program called?
Thanks in advance for the review, Dad. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, we got a review from Gladiator of Kaon, if I'm saying that right. This is a great Star Wars podcast. I'm glad I found them on this app. Fun, positive, in-depth discussion. Sorry we were not positive for you today,
Yeah.
but it
Oh,
was a
darn.
5-star review. I feel like we're still fair to the show.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it just you gotta kind of call it like you see it. Hopefully you stick with us, our friend, and thank you for the review. Much appreciated. Anybody who's listening, please just please do the. We try not to bombard you with the like and subscribe and do all this stuff, but like for small channels.
But if you
like
do,
that,
we read them out on the air.
Yeah.
So make sure you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. The same thing with comments. When we get good comments.
Oh yeah, we got a great comment. Hold on, we got a great comment.
You can go to you can go to our last video if you want to see what we're laughing about.
While I'm out, we got this great comment about how we're shills. So
yeah,
you can leave that. We'll go back and forth with you on that. But anyway, you can contact us there. Speaking of CO Bibble, you must contact us at podawakens.
Contact us
at gmail.com. So make sure you reach us there for long form emails. We can read those on air as well. So what I'm thinking is we'll wrap up the Acolyte coverage next week with the episodes. And then maybe, depending on how we feel about it, if we get any sort of feedback about it, maybe we do a bonus one after that with just like, look, we saw all 8. We had a week to breathe on it. What's the legacy of the show, right?
Yeah, yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Could there be a second season? Do you see possibilities for it? That kind of thing. We could do that after the show's all done. But next week we'll kind of try to focus on just the details of the actual episode, how satisfied we were with it, stuff like that. And then we'll kind of talk about the show as a whole, like a week or two after the show, and just so that's the thing. Like, if you watch the finale and send us feedback after the finale, we can read them on air when we're talking about that post-mortem of the Acolyte. Maybe that's what we call it, the Acolyte post-mortem. See how it goes. Ron, anything else about this episode?
I was just going to say, hopefully our last 2 episodes about this show, the finale and the post-mortem, are a little more positive than we were able to be tonight. It's one of those things. We all love Star Wars here, and we much prefer being positive about it than being negative. And when we have these moments where we have to be realistic, it's one of those things you just got to kind of bite the bullet and do it, even though it's not an enjoyable thing to do. So, fingers crossed, like I said, that we close out strong, and even if there's some questions lingering, that overall we all still feel satisfied with the product as a whole. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think the reason why, like I said, I wasn't even this negative on like Secret Invasion. I don't even think it's I don't even think it's negative in that respect. It's the first 5 episodes were so good for me.
Yeah.
That now I'm like, I really thought this thing was hitting at a level that I was going to be like telling people, you got to watch The Acolyte. Yeah. And depending on how this next episode goes, it'd be like, maybe
you gotta watch the first 5 episodes of The Acolyte
and then stop there, right? Um,
The Sith wins. That was the finale.
that was the finale. Yeah, those three other episodes were bonus. Don't worry about them. Um, that's the kind of thing like that is frustrating for me. Is I think this show can reach another gear, and that's kind of what I said at episode 5 was. We can go anywhere. We know who the Sith is. We know who this is. We got the characters in different places. And they haven't done enough with that over these last 2 episodes. And now I'm like, all right, well, we only got one, right? So what do we do now? They can nail it. I do think 43 minutes is enough time if they are like balls to the wall out of the gate in this episode.
Mhm.
But
And
it's
it
like,
has
how does it get wrapped up? There's a lot of questions. I wouldn't even say like questions in the sense of like plot questions, just like how do you tie it up, right? These characters are spread out. What are their motivations, right? Soul's motivations to get Osha back, but what's May's motivation? What's Kymir's motivation? We have no clue, right? Like he
yeah.
wants an acolyte, we know that, but like, what happens if Soul finds him? Is he gonna like just fight him again? Is he gonna turn Osha on him? Like, we don't even know what the plan is with one episode to go because this flashback happens right at the end. Um, so there you have it. That's kind of my concerns going into the last episode. I hope they prove me wrong with that. I hope it's not the eighth episode I described where I said, "Oh, then they become one and Soul dies and they pin it on Soul." Like I don't want any of that to happen,
No.
but we got that stuff up in the air. So that's that. All right, like we said, podawakens@gmail.com for long form content. Uh, Podawakens on all of our social media. That's Twitter, Facebook, Threads, Instagram. Catch us all there. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we are back to talk the finale of The Acolyte.